Everyone, is still March 29, 2019. Time's about 12:21 now, and it's Geo-Rant time, Geo-Rant number 99. And here are the three books again: Geo-Rant 97, all right, Geo-Rant 98, all right, and Geo-Rant, this one, Geo-Rant 99. This is the thinnest of the three books. Like I've said before in the other Geo-Rants, this is a reference manual. It is not a how-to book. It is not a teaching guide. All right, it's to show you how to classify metamorphic rocks, and I try to keep it simple. Metamorphic rock classification, when you're taught at the undergraduate level, it's a very simple classification system, and that one's actually in here. And because most people don't end up working with metamorphic rocks at all. It's more, igneous petrology is probably the most popular. Sedimentary petrology, a little less so. But usually igneous and metamorphic are together. And usually the metamorphic rocks they're together with tend to have an igneous origin. Because remember, metamorphic rocks are rocks that have undergone extreme heat and pressure, but not to the melting point, except for one, which I'm going to get into. But they can either be igneous or sedimentary or metamorphic themselves in origin. Metamorphic rocks can be remetamorphosed into other metamorphic rocks. Maybe I didn't include the diagram in here. Maybe I left that simplified diagram out. I thought I had it in here. I may have decided last second to take it out. But anyway, I don't want to babble too long here, so if I don't see it at this next flip through, I will. Okay, that's it. All right, so this one, like the sedimentary one, is divided into 5 parts. Your first part, I'm not going to jump around this time, I promise, is your overview and general characterization of metamorphic rocks. And in this section, we have, there's a part 1 right there. We have things like, what is a metamorphic rock? Oh, wait, that simple chart I just told you I couldn't find, guess where it is? It's this right here. This is a slightly more complex version of the simplified one most undergraduates are taught, all right? And metamorphic rocks can fall into 2 broad categories, most of them, either foliated or non-foliated. We have, here I talk about euhedral and anhedral crystals again, because it is important, because metamorphic rocks will have some sort of recrystallization involved. So once again, we have a modified Wentworth scale, like we did for igneous, and sedimentary zone doesn't have a modified one, just igneous and metamorphic do. Colors, types and causes of metamorphism, the 6 types, arguably only 5 types, but it's here and there. Metamorphic facies and grades. This chart here is the main one. This one's just in order to keep this from getting too busy, I did this little inset one here showing the metamorphic grades, because a lot of these are the facies, and unless you're talking to technical people who know what these are, you're better off just using low, medium, and high grade. And in here you'll also see lithification and diagenesis. That only applies to sedimentary rocks. Those terms are strictly for sedimentary rocks, okay? Because igneous rocks solidify from melt, or they're ash, so they don't really have a diagenesis. They just harden from melt. All right, so metamorphic rocks, because they're altered, igneous, sedimentary, or metamorphic rocks, it doesn't really apply to them either. We have common metamorphic minerals. Oh, I think I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 pages and a little space for you to write some more if you wanted. It's not quite 6, so I have massive sinus infection again, because it's allergy time. And I deal with some things like myelinites. I don't consider myelinite a rock type. I consider it a modifier. Now, there's things in geology that we use as both nouns and adjectives, and I actually address that in here. And one of those things would be like granite, as in granitic. But that makes sense, because granitic texture implies, it defines a lot. I don't think myelinite is a legitimate rock type. I don't like using it as a rock type, because we can just say banded gneiss or banded schist or foliated schist. There are other terms for this. Myelinitic texture, using it as an adjective, is fine. All right. As a descriptive term, and I go over that here. And some myelinite from Canada. I have a modified thickness scale for bedding, foliations, lineations, and banding. Well, why bedding? Because non-foliated metasedimentary rocks like quartzites and stuff are considered non-foliated, but they are still bedded. They still retain their primary structures. Cleavage, and then we get to part 2, foliated metamorphic rocks, which is a lot thinner. We get your slates, your phyllites, your schists, your gneisses. I have some pictures of there. Part 3 would be your non-foliated metamorphic rocks. It would be your non-foliated. So part 2 is foliated. Oh yeah, part 1. Yeah, that's right. So your non-foliated. This is your metasedimentary rocks largely. Your conglomerites, your sandites, which can be divided into quartzite, proto-quartzite, and immature quartzite. And I actually have a diagram for that here. I have some pictures of my own collections and photos I've taken in the field and stuff like that. And then I have ironite, which is metamorphosed banded iron formation, metamorphosed BIF. Here's some chart right there to help you out, to guide you. Now, you got to remember too, a lot of these, like a lot of people, like if I was to go to Baraboo, Wisconsin, I'll mention this in my Baraboo video, which you're going to see. Baraboo, Wisconsin is mostly a purple quartzite, mostly. Medium to coarse grain crystalline, low grade metamorphic, zeolite, green schist facies. Metamorphosed, it used to be a quartz arenite. It used to be a sandstone. It's conglomeratic in places, there's some phyllite in places. But that aside, so we could tell the metamorphic grade. Now, every geologist south of the 45th parallel is going to call that a quartzite and say, yeah, that's a metamorphic rock, okay? But if you go to Canada and go to the Huronian area, the Huronian supergroup above the 45th parallel, like Sault Ste. Marie area, or you go north more to like Wawa, and you start looking at quartzites, in a lot of the literature, they will describe them as a sandstone, like it was a sandstone. So, it's one man's quartzites, another man's sandstone, so it's kind of, it's potato. So, but technically, if there's any recrystallization involved, okay, not overgrowth, but recrystallization, it is a metamorphic rock. It has undergone heat and pressure into the zeolite facies, and Baraboo has, the Lorraine Formation in Canada has. Those have all undergone metamorphism. So technically they are metamorphic rocks. Okay, part 4, unique metamorphic rocks. These are your migmatites. Migmatites are metamorphic rocks that have been metamorphosed so high temperature and pressure that they will partially but not completely melt. And migmatite classification is complicated because there was a time when people were tossing around the idea of making it a 4th rock type. So you'd have igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic, and migmatitic. But it's not necessary. They are metamorphic rocks. They just have a metamorphic and an igneous component to them. So going through the literature and using what I know, I divided them into 2 main types. Your arterite migmatites, which are the ones that have the feldspathic, well-banded igneous intrusions and melts in them. That feldspathic part may have been derived from the mafic darker parts, or it may not have been. They may have been injected. It looks like in that case it mostly was, though, because you do see darker mafic bits within the feldspathic bits. And then you have your venite migmatites. Those are your migmatites where there's no obvious intruding of igneous magma from either locally derived or from somewhere else. But you can tell there was some melting involved, and that's this type right here. And both types are present in Canada, although the arenite one, or the ardenite one, is more common by far around here. And then we have the skarns. Skarns are a special type. I go into those. Here's my copper skarn. And then part 5 is just references and notes. After the references, there's some places you can take notes if you want. But this is coming up on 10 minutes. So anyway, that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Like, subscribe, whatever. And I hope you learned something.